Today, we're diving into something called al-masa ala al-khuffayn. Basically, it's about wiping over special socks or footwear for ablution. And honestly, it's a practice that beautifully shows just how much ease and relief is built into daily worship.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever been in the middle of a freezing winter, and the thought of having to wash your feet with cold water for wudu just feels like a real struggle? I think we've all been there. And that's exactly the kind of situation this practice is for.
And that leads us right into our first section. You see, the whole idea behind this isn't just about following a rule. It's about mercy. It's about relief. It's a really powerful example of the compassion at the heart of the faith.
At its core, the wisdom here is incredibly simple. It's all about making things easier, especially when you're facing a tough situation, like that biting cold we just talked about, or maybe when you're traveling. The whole point is to remove obstacles, to make sure that prayer is something you can always turn to no matter what.
And this isn't some new idea. Not at all. It's a practice that's firmly rooted in the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We have this narration from Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas that confirms it, so we know it's an authentic tradition, coming directly from the source.
So, we keep using this word khafan. But what are they exactly? Let's get into that in our next section and clear it up.
Okay, so a kuf, and the plural is kufain, is basically any kind of footwear. You can think of it like a sock or a boot. Traditionally, they were made of leather, but that definition has expanded to include thick, durable fabric too, as long as it meets a few specific conditions, which we're going to cover in just a second.
So it's the bottom line. The official ruling is that wiping over the khuffayn is considered ja'iz, which means it's permissible. It's a totally valid substitute for washing your feet during wudu as long as you meet the criteria.
Right, but like I said, it's not a total free-for-all. This amazing concession does have its rules. So let's break down the specific conditions you have to meet to make sure you're doing it correctly.
And what's really cool is how practical these conditions are. Okay, first, you have to put them on when you're already in a state of purity, meaning right after you've made a complete wudu. Second, they've got to cover the whole area you'd normally wash, and that includes your ankles. Third, they need to be tough enough that you could walk around in them. And finally, the footwear itself has to be ritually pure, or tahir, no impurities on it. Makes sense, right?
All right, so let's say you've met all the conditions. Now what? How long can you keep doing this, and what's the right way to actually do the wiping? Let's get into the practical side of things. Now, this is really interesting because the time limit actually depends on your situation. If you're a resident, just going about your normal life at home, you can do this for 1 day and 1 night, so 24 hours. But for a traveler, that gets extended to 3 full days and nights, 72 hours. You can really see that theme of easing hardship for the traveler coming through here. So, how much of the sock or boot do you actually have to wipe? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Just wiping any part of the top surface of the khuf is enough. You don't have to go crazy and wipe the whole thing, front and back. The minimum is all that's required. Now, while that minimum is perfectly fine, there is a recommended way to do it, based on the practice of the Prophet, the Sunnah. And here's how it goes. You wet your hands, spread your fingers out, place them on the tips of your toes, and then just wipe back in one single smooth motion towards your leg, going just past the ankle. It's that simple and clean. And finally, let's cover the invalidators. What are the things that end this permission? What makes you have to go back to washing your feet the regular way? So, there are 3 main things to keep in mind. First, if you take off even one of the kufyan, the permission is void. Second, when your time limit is up, that's 24 hours for a resident, 72 for a traveler. And third, any situation that requires a full ritual bath or ghusl. If that happens, you perform ghusl, and then you can start the whole cycle over again by making a fresh wudu and putting your kufyan back on.
So really, the big takeaway here is that this whole ruling on wiping over the khuffayn is just a perfect example of the ease, the compassion, and the sheer practicality that's woven into Islamic worship. It's designed to adapt to real human needs, never to be an impossible burden.
And that leaves me with one last thought for you. How does learning about a concession like this change your perspective? Does it give you a deeper appreciation for the flexibility built into worship? It's a great reminder that the ultimate goal is connection, not hardship. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.